Good Friday to you. Hope your weekend is off to a great start. Thanks for joining us on More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. I'm Dave Bacon. Browns getting ready to head down south to take on the Bengals. Browns a 3-point favorite on the road against the Bengals. It's their second game of the season. The Browns played the Bengals in week 2, a short week, and Joe Burrow, the quarterback for the Bengals, the rookie, threw the ball 61 times, but the Browns got out to a big lead early, and that rushing attack with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt leading the way led to a 35-30 win. You see Burrow, though, 316 yards, 3 touchdowns. Chubb with 124 and 2 touchdowns. Hunt with 86 yards and a touchdown. It'll be Kareem Hunt having to carry the load. Zach Taylor, head coach of the Bengals, looks back at that first game where the Bengals fell behind early and could never really catch up. He knows there were a couple of plays that could have changed the outcome of that game.
Opportunities in the first half that we misfired on, and when I say misfired, just whether it's communication issues or technique issues or getting us to a better play call, on my end, certainly things early in the game that put us in a hole that was hard for us to get out of.
Well, and that first game was a short week for Joe Burrow. Only had 4 games to set that up as a Thursday night game. This will be the second time that Joe Burrow has faced a team twice in the season. So first time for the rookie to do that. Now Joe Burrow realizes that might not throw the ball 61 times this time against the Browns. At least he hopes he doesn't. Hopes this game unfolds very differently for the Bengals.
That was kind of a weird game. They jumped out on us early, so they played a lot more zone against us. Tried to keep everything in front of them, made me take, short completions up and down the field. So I anticipate a little different game, but, obviously Myles Garrett is one of the best pass rushers in the league. So, we're going to have a plan for him. I'm going to have to always keep him in mind. Denzel's playing like one of the best corners in the league. I'm excited to compete against him for several years. He's a really good player, fast, strong, violent through the catch point. He's really, really good.
AJ not only had good stats last week, but it seemed like almost every one of his catches came on 2nd and long, 3rd down, 4th down, etc. Did that seem like a breakthrough moment between you and him in terms of the chemistry going forward?
We were on the same page on Sunday, and that was good to see. I think he's going to start building on the momentum that he had last game. You can kind of feel it. He kind of has a presence around him today. I'm excited to see what he's going to do.
Joe Burrow talking about the big game he and A.J. Green had last week against the Indianapolis Colts. That's not a good thing for Browns fans. We've seen A.J. Green do some damage to that Browns secondary. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. On the other side of the break, Dan Labbe, Browns beat reporter, joins us. We will break down this second meeting in the Battle of Ohio as the Browns head down to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals Sunday. More sports and less Levine. Weekend Winners Edition will be right back. Stay with us.
Presque Isle Downs and Casino has sports betting. Use one of our 50 state-of-the-art Bet America kiosks to place your bet and watch your favorite games on one of our many HD televisions or visit our sportsbook area. Only at Presque Isle Downs and Casino.
Do you like Ohio State football? Would you like to get information from me, Doug Maurice, about Ohio State football without having to look at my face? We have got the plan for you. Become an Ohio State text subscriber through cleveland.com. You send a text, 614-350-3315. What do you get? 2, 3, 4 texts right in your phone every day about Ohio State football. Inside information, polls, voting, all kinds of things. You can be on our podcast. We take text subscriber questions on our Buckeye Talk podcast every week. If you really want to be involved with Ohio State football, in season or out of season. Become an Ohio State tech subscriber from cleveland.com. Send a text to 614-350-3315. 14-day free trial. What do you have to lose? $3.99 a month after that. 614-350-3315. I'll see you in your phone.
Tri-C is here for you. Now more than ever, you need a post-secondary education. So I encourage you to start your journey here at Tri-C. The majority of fall classes will take place online, but we've added a variety of formats to meet your learning needs, and we've taken many steps to keep you safe on campus. Whether you're ready to get started or your four-year plans have changed, Tri-C is where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. Welcome back to More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. I'm Dave Bacon. Joe Burrow is nice, Zach Taylor is nice, but we'd much rather flip the script and hear from Browns beat reporter Dan Labbe. He is the Browns beat reporter here on cleveland.com as well as in the pages of the Plain Dealer. Dan, as always, appreciate the time. Wish it was more exciting and fun stuff to talk about. That game against the Steelers, though, it kind of unfolded in much the same way that Ravens game did in Week 1.
It really did. I mean, the only difference is the Browns were kind of in that Ravens game a little bit longer. I believe it was 10-6 in the second quarter, and then you had the Odell Beckham drop, the Austin Seibert missed field goal, and the wheels just kind of came off after that. This one was pure domination by the Steelers from, minute 1 to minute 60. There were little tiny things here and there for the Browns, but it was just the Steelers kind of reminding the Browns that they're big brother and you're still little brother, and it looked like it for most of that game.
And the really concerning thing is the defense goes out and holds to a field goal. It was a pretty impressive drive to start. They hold to a field goal, then the turnover, the pick six, and just like that, you're in a huge hole again.
And credit to the defense. After that pick six, they forced a couple 3-and-outs, and the Browns just couldn't get anything going on the offensive side of the football. And everybody talks about the pick six, but I don't think we're spending enough time on the second interception. The Browns were playing a field position game, and Baker Mayfield kind of panicked a little bit, left the pocket, threw the ball up for grabs. And I mean, you want to see better than that from a guy who's starting his 35th or 36th game, whatever it was in his career. The pick six was a bad decision, but that was a panic play that you expect from, a guy playing, maybe a guy the Browns are going to play here soon, Joe Burrow, as opposed to a guy that started games.
Yeah, and it's concerning because, again, when he's in the pocket, particularly over the middle of the field, it doesn't look like he's like Baker is processing what he needs to process, and that has to be a huge concern.
And you hate to go back to this because it was such a topic of conversation coming out, and it didn't seem like it was an issue in 2018, but you do wonder sometimes because Baker is a shorter quarterback. He's not 6'4" or 6'5", and as we've seen in the NFL, you don't necessarily have to be, but you've got to be able to find throwing lanes and find lanes where you can see what's going on. And I think there are times in the pocket where he really is kind of having trouble seeing what's in front of him. And also, I'm not sure how much he trusts what he's seeing sometimes. You go back and look, and there are throws that he can make that are pretty easy throws, and he double clutches, he hesitates. I think when he does see things, he's not really fully trusting what he's seeing.
Is it a function of this offense, do you think? He's just because it is a different system, or do you think it's even maybe deeper than that?
It's probably a combination of both. He's still learning this offense, and this does put an emphasis on the ball getting out on time, the ball getting out accurately. And sometimes, especially on some of those short third downs where they run these quick plays past the sticks, if you don't get the ball there on time, that throw might not just be there anymore. but I also think there are some bad habits. I still think he's leaving clean pockets. I still think he's not stepping up into the pocket enough. It's just I don't know if he's seeing ghosts. I don't know exactly what's going on, but he just doesn't feel comfortable when he's in the pocket. And we're going to start seeing it now. There's going to be some teams they play that might not be able to do this, but the teams that can, they're going to try and hem him in like Pittsburgh did and make sure that he can't escape the pocket.
The other thing is because he was banged up, and we really don't know how severe that the pain was when he's trying to throw. We saw Case Keenum. Is that something that starts to factor into this? Because there looks like there's a lot of pieces to win games around it, and right now Baker Mayfield is I think kind of hindering that more than helping that, and you can't have that at the quarterback position.
You're right, but I think the Browns can continue to ride with Baker Mayfield. I think they should continue to ride with Baker Mayfield just because that's part of what this season is about, is figuring out exactly who he is. And I think you've got to ride with him until he either gets it figured out or until the wheels come off, to be honest. And the good news is you've got a stretch of games here before you have to go to Tennessee in December that Baker should be able to play well enough. And you should be able to do what you want to do offensively, dictate what you want to do offensively. And that's when Baker's had his most success, when the Browns can kind of be who they want to be, limit the number of passes he throws, let him get out of the pocket, let him work off of play action. I think we're going to see a better Baker Mayfield over the next 5 weeks.
And the one thing he cannot do, and you saw the comparison between he and Case Keenum under Kevin Stefanski, can't turn the ball over. You can't have turnovers. And that's one thing Keenum was able to do, is protect the football under Kevin Stefanski. Baker has to do a better job of that.
That's really the one caveat in all of this. If he's turning the football over and those turnovers are costing you games, or those turnovers are starting to lead to guys just losing faith in him, then that's when you start to contemplate that change. But if he's able to get the turnovers under control and continue to sort of manage the game like he was during that 4-game win streak, I think you can continue to ride with Baker for as long as possible.
And when we say manage the game, at this point in his career, that's not a negative. I mean, it's what he needs to do in this system so that he can develop to the quarterback that can take over and win games for you. But you can't go from where he is now to taking over football games. That's just unrealistic.
Right. It's all a process. And the other piece of it too is, if Baker's ceiling isn't top 5 or top 10 quarterback, but if his ceiling is he can run your offense, he can sit in the cockpit and make sure that he's not making mistakes, distribute the football, you can live with that. Now, you might have one eye on some other quarterbacks. You might, sort of like what Kansas City did with Alex Smith when they rode with him for a long time. They won a lot with him. They made the playoffs a lot. And finally, they decided they needed to go a different direction, and they found the guy they wanted. You can develop Baker Mayfield. And I think you would hope at minimum you can develop Baker Mayfield into sort of what Kansas City had in Alex Smith. Obviously, you want him to be more than that. But if ultimately even that ends up being his ceiling, you can live with that for a long time.
The flip side of it is the running game for the first time just wasn't there. I mean, Kareem Hunt did a nice job when he was in there, with running hard, but that defensive line won the battle. That's the first time we've seen that. The Browns' offensive line did not win up front.
Yeah, and this is a game where they really miss Nick Chubb. Not so much because, maybe he would have been able to get some of those runs going that Kareem Hunt couldn't. But really, I think we saw the drop-off this week from Kareem Hunt to D'Ernest Johnson. Saw it a little bit against Indianapolis, but Kareem Hunt ran really hard in the second half of that game and got going. Pittsburgh has one of the best run defenses in football, if not the best run defense in football. And it showed on Sunday. And when you can have that 1-2 punch at least of Chubb and Hunt to kind of throw at it, maybe you can find some dents and maybe you can make a little noise. But Kareem Hunt, probably still a little banged up. And then you start handing the ball off to D'Ernest Johnson and Dontrell Hilliard, who I know had a big run, late in the game. You see that drop off and you realize that for this offense to really be effective, it really is all about that 1-2 punch.
Have you been surprised that the Browns have not used more of a screen game in this offense in the first 6-7 games? That would seem, with Hunt and some of the other guys, that you'd want to get their ball, the hands in the ball of your playmakers in some space.
I am, and I do think they tried a little bit of that against Pittsburgh, but that defensive front was so aggressive, and they were really on. I mean, they had everything timed down. I mean, we saw T.J. Watt at times coming across the line right as the ball was being snapped, and it really kind of blew up any opportunities for that screen game. If anybody remembers the sort of fake end around to Odell Beckham in the third quarter, that was actually a screen set up for Hunt that if they could have kept Bud Dupree at bay, it might have been a big gainer out of a screen. But unfortunately, Dupree had everything timed up perfectly. They couldn't get a body on him. He wasn't buying the end around, and he ends up sacking Baker Mayfield. So I think it ended up being a really difficult game to get the screen game going.
The two losses have been so devastatingly big, and they've been blowouts, and two division rivals that you think you're competing with. I think fans and maybe even some of the media are forgetting Browns are still 4-2. It doesn't feel like it because the two losses have been so dramatic and drastic to the two teams you're trying to hang with.
Yeah, and some of it comes down to, I guess, expectation. Obviously, we want to measure this team against the Baltimores and the Pittsburghs of the world. And I think it's fair to at least measure them in the sense, let's see how close they are. And I think it's a little disappointing that what we've seen so far is they aren't even close. Like they haven't even had a chance to steal these games or whatever it is. So I think the reality is everyone kind of knew, not kind of, absolutely knew, Baltimore, Super Bowl contender. They're going to be better than the Browns. Pittsburgh, if Ben Roethlisberger is Ben Roethlisberger and that defense is still that defense, they're going to be better than the Browns. I think the disappointment comes in and how much better they've been. You lost both games by more than 30 points, and you weren't even really competitive at any point in those football games, at least in the second half against Baltimore. So I think that's where the disappointment comes. That's where you kind of come away licking your wounds and it doesn't feel like you're 4-2. But again, you go out and take care of business over these next 5, everybody's going to start feeling really good about this football team.
Yeah, and the flip side of it is you really don't have a true sense of how close the Browns are to the Ravens or the Steelers, because those games were not anywhere near the way they played in the other 4. Now, granted, the Ravens and the Steelers are two of the reasons why, but you don't get a true sense of, boy, if they played really well, where are they at in relation to the Steelers or the Ravens?
Exactly, and to be honest, we just have an incomplete picture, because they're going to play these teams in a Monday night game against Baltimore. They're going to play the Steelers in the finale now. Will both teams have something to play for in week 17? Who knows? But if they do, that's going to be a really great measuring stick. And to be honest, those might even be better measuring sticks than what we've seen in these first 2 games, because now the Browns have sort of felt those teams. Kevin Stefanski has coached against those teams. He's going to be able to make adjustments. And that's really kind of where the real tests come in. When those 2 teams come to your stadium in December, are you more competitive? Are those games closer? Do you look like you're more on their level than you did the first 2 times?
And a couple more things on the offense. Well, now the Ravens just traded for Yannick Ngakoue, and so that's going to make that defense that much more difficult to handle, especially with the pressure they're going to be able to bring.
And I think that sort of underlines kind of where both those teams are, right? Where Baltimore is going for it in a big way. So they go out and they get one of the best pass rushers available, a guy I know they've wanted, and they finally end up landing him after a quick stopover in Minnesota. That's a team that's going for it with Super Bowl expectations. The Browns are not a team with Super Bowl expectations. Look, if they were to make the playoffs and somehow back into the Super Bowl, nobody's complaining. But their goal is just that, be one of those 7 teams at the end of the year that's in the tournament and get a chance to maybe play a playoff game, whether it's Kansas City or wherever, just kind of gain that little bit of experience in the postseason and start to build moving forward. So the Ravens being aggressive just underlines where they are compared to the Browns too, I think.
Last thing I'll ask you on the offensive side of the ball, we find out that Landry actually had a broken rib that he was nursing against the Steelers. How big of a concern is that? I know the word is he's going to play, but that's still a guy that he's a physical guy that blocks, and that can't feel real good with a broken rib.
Right. Jarvis Landry is not going to miss a game, I think, unless, something absolutely crazy happens. This guy just doesn't miss games. But he is a physical receiver. He blocks hard. He runs hard routes. He doesn't just run out of bounds. He'll take punishment. He'll give out punishment. And that's going to be hard to do with that broken rib. And, Joe Woods was actually asked, like, if you're a defensive coordinator and you hear that, don't you kind of go after that a little bit? And Joe Woods said the right thing. He said, no, we don't do that sort of stuff. But if you think defenders don't know that rib is broken and they don't know which side of the body it's on, they're going to know. And if they have an opportunity to inflict some punishment, sort of as Cam Hayward said, within the rules, they're certainly going to try and do that.
Dan Labbe, Browns beat reporter here on cleveland.com, as well as in the pages of the Plain Dealer. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, Dan will rejoin us, and we'll flip sides of the ball. Joe Burrow and that Bengals offense and our Browns defense. More sports and less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Transform your home for the holidays with an authentic Nature Stone garage floor. No more tripping on cracked, uneven concrete. Stop slipping on puddles and standing water. It's the safer, more beautiful garage floor that's easy to clean and never needs replaced. That's why it's backed by Russell's Promise. For a limited time, get more Nature Stone than ever before with up to half your garage floor free. Schedule your free cost estimate easily online today at naturestone.com to qualify for your free flooring. It's not just a floor.
Wow, it's Nature Stone.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget. Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
More sports and less Levine. The Weekend Winners Edition continues. I'm Dave Bacon. Well, we're going to flip sides of the ball. We're going to talk Browns defense, Bengals offense. Let's bring back in Dan Labbe, Browns beat reporter here on cleveland.com, as well as in the Plain Dealer. And Dan, when you look at this, it'll be the first time that Joe Burrow goes against a team for the second time in a season as the rookie. And threw the ball 61 times against the Browns. Looked pretty good in that loss in Game 2 on a short week of preparation.
He's been so impressive in this rookie season. He's lived up to that hype of the number one pick. And, go watch that game against Indianapolis, and especially in that first half when they built that lead, he's just so impressive with his decision-making, his aggressiveness. He's starting to get that downfield ball going a little bit now. I'm curious to see what he does in this football game. Like you said, second time playing the Browns. Now, the Browns look a little bit different defensively, but this is still the same team. He kind of knows what he's going to get from them. He knows to watch out for number 95, although he probably should have known that going into the first game. This is going to be a really interesting test for Burrow.
A.J. Green had a huge game last week in the close one that they lost to the Colts. Had a big lead and they let it get away. But Green, first game where he has really looked like the A.J. Green. That's got to be concerning because he's had some huge games against the Browns during the course of his career.
He's one of those guys that loves to see that brown and orange uniform. And, he struggled in the first meeting between these two. Denzel Ward did a really nice job on him, as did Terrence Mitchell in some matchups against him. But, he has that rough outing where he gets caught on the sideline and some folks are speculating, doing some lip reading, saying that he almost wants to be traded. I think he came out and denied it, but then he comes out and has an absolutely huge game for Joe Burrow and company. I think the Bengals' weapons are really good, and they have a really good stable of wide receivers if they can protect their quarterback. And if A.J. Green is playing closer to the A.J. Green we know, it just makes that group more dangerous.
Yeah, they may not be the big name guys like Dallas, but in Boyd you got the guy that works underneath. Higgins is another big body, and A.J. Green. And then, if John Ross ever gets back on the field, that's the guy that, literally he set the record for 40-yard dash at the combine. So there is all the pieces that would concern a defense wearing those Bengals helmets.
And Zach Taylor's the guy that loves to, run sort of those spread sets, that 11 personnel. He comes from that Sean McVay school of offense, and you see a little bit of that. And, I actually am kind of intrigued by Zach Taylor, at least as an offensive coach. I don't think there's enough evidence for him as a head coach to really know what he is. But, I like some of his play calling. I like how he uses some of his weapons. And this is going to be a really interesting team offensively moving forward. I'm kind of excited to see what they can do. Again, though, it all comes down to, can that front protect Burrow long enough?
Yeah, their offensive line hasn't been great. And the Browns' defensive line, really, Garrett had some plays where he pressured Roethlisberger. I think he had a sack as well. But it wasn't him taking over like he has a couple of games this year. And really, Browns defense needs that from Myles Garrett.
Yeah, I think he was a little quieter than some folks expected, but I also think the Steelers did a nice job of sort of neutralizing him. Sort of the life of a defensive end or an edge rusher, even an inside guy like an Aaron Donald, sometimes you'll see that, a team is able to neutralize that guy by double teaming him, or even in Myles' case, sometimes sending 3 guys over or some help. And that's where the other guys on that line need to step up and make plays, because then that in turn, just like Myles Garrett freed them up, well, now the defense has to pay attention to those guys. That means less resources to Myles, and later in a game he can make a play.
Yeah, the other thing that had to be concerning is you had Connor, who we talked about last week when we were talking, had another big game. He had a lot of room to run. Mixon is banged up, but he's a similar style. I'm going to run through and over people, kind of what Connor did.
And Mixon is another guy that has put up big numbers against the Browns. Now, his are a little more in line with what the rest of his career has been. Connor's numbers against the Browns are such an outlier. It's just bizarre what he's able to do against them. Mixon is probably the most dangerous player on that offense, considering where A.J. Green is at right now. And he's the guy that if he's able to play and able to run the ball, it causes big problems for the Browns. And it might allow Cincinnati to hang around in this game longer than the Browns want them to. So they're crossing their fingers, I'm sure, that Giovanni Bernard is going to be the guy out there on Sunday.
And Bernard, again, that's a whole different issue, because that's somebody you're concerned about going out and getting free down the sidelines on wheel routes or in the passing game, which, again, a pressure up front would cure that. We've mentioned it's Joe Burrow's first time playing a team twice. It's also going to be Kevin Stefanski's first time as a head coach going against a division rival for the second time. Do you expect some tweaks to that? From what we've seen as far as play calling and what goes, Stefanski's been really good. I would expect him to tweak what he did week 2 against the Bengals.
Yeah, you have to a little bit, but you also still need to be who you are and kind of understand that, look, your team is better than the Bengals. You should be able to go out there and do what you want to do. But now there are some tendencies, and the Bengals have seen how you want to use the rollout game, how you want to use the play action game, how you want to use your backs, all of those things. So they've got a little bit of experience to work with. Again, though, I think the talent disparity is just too much for them to really be able to do the things maybe they need to do to slow down this offense and slow down what the Browns were able to do leading into the Pittsburgh game. And I think Stefanski's going to be able to continue to do what he does best without really overthinking.
Who do you expect to kind of be the guy that they look to have a big game? Do you think it's going to be Hunt? Do you think it might be Hooper? Where would you look offensively for the Browns to look to get those points they're going to need?
I would just start by establishing Hunt. I think he's had 2 games now as your starter, and he's had to go against the Colts and the Steelers, 2 of the best run defenses in football. Like I said earlier, he ran really hard in that second half against the Colts and ended up putting up some decent numbers. But he's going to feel like he has insane amounts of space going up against this defense. So I would start there. Get Kareem Hunt going, in the run game and the pass game. But also, this is something we've talked about before. We we had what happened with Odell on the sideline, and I know Jarvis is banged up, but it's not going to hurt to maybe get those guys involved a little bit earlier too, and just make sure again they get those early touches so they're not sitting there in the second quarter wondering when the football is going to come their way. But to me, it's
how important do you think is that offensive line kind of getting back to being the dominant line that it was? And again, I know you're talking about the defense of the Steelers and the defense of the Bengals, and there's a wide disparity, but that line's got to win up front.
Yeah, exactly. They've got to get back to imposing their will. They're coming off a game where they're licking their wounds a little bit. They didn't look like the best offensive line in football, and they've got to go out there and reestablish that they're going to be the driving force behind this offense. So I think this is a great opportunity for them, and I'm sure Bill Callahan has been in that building pushing those guys that, hey, you weren't good enough against Pittsburgh. We're going to fix this, and we're going to go out there and prove it against Cincinnati. I think this is a huge game for them it's a huge game for everybody, really, to say, you know what, last week, that game against Pittsburgh, that was an outlier. Just flush that game. This is who we really are.
Time for prediction time. What do you think happens? You and I were both incorrect last week. We thought the Browns would win a close one. What do you see happening here?
It's hard for me to think it's going to be all that close. I think the line on this game was something like 3.5. Joey Covers in the second game of the season came through, and I think the line in that game was 6, and he covered right at the end of that game. I don't think that's going to happen this week. I think the Browns are going to win by 2 scores. Let's go 34-21.
I think the Browns will win as well. I think it'll be a little bit closer. 7-10 is what I'm thinking. But again, every week, they have to take care of the football. They can't have turnovers. That's the only way they lose. I think if Baker doesn't throw that pick 6 and that other interception, I think that game is totally different. But it's the NFL. You can say that about 2 plays in every game probably.
Yeah, exactly. Protect the football, run the football, and the Browns shouldn't have any trouble on Sunday.
Dan Labbe, as always, we appreciate the time and the insight. You can read Dan in the pages of the Plain Dealer. You can also see him here on cleveland.com as well. I'm sure we'll be checking in with again next week, Dan. Appreciate the time.
Yep, absolutely.
We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we're going to head down south to Cincinnati, and we will get the Bengals' point of view of this matchup between the Browns and Bengals. More sports and less Levine. The Weekend Winners Edition will be right back. Stay with us.
We're living in uncertain times, but you don't have to put your future on hold. At Tri-C, you can move ahead while staying safe and saving money. The majority of fall classes will take place online, but we've added a variety of formats to meet your learning needs, and we've taken many steps to keep you safe on campus. Whether you're ready to get started or your 4-year plans have changed, check out Tri-C's programs and resources, because Tri-C is where futures begin.
Well, hello, everyone. Let me tell you a little bit about Browns Football Insider. For only $3.99 a month, you can get text sent right to your phone each day from me, Dan Labbe, Scott Pasco, and Ellis Williams. In addition to that, you'll receive a Football Insider newsletter every day with special things from us, things that you won't see anywhere else on the site. You'll get breaking news, analysis, features, film breakdown, and things like that. Texting us directly gives you a great chance to cut through the clutter of Facebook, Twitter, other social media, and avoid the trolls. Also, it's the only way to get your questions on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. So why should you sign up? Try a 14-day free trial. You can cancel at any time. All it takes is one text, but you won't want to cancel. We have hundreds of subscribers join us over the last year. They love it and have stayed with us. We're seeing the Football Insider community grow every week. And it's only $3.99 a month, which is less than 14 cents a day. What I like most about Football Insider is the opportunity to connect with you one-on-one and really communicate with you. So how can you become a Football Insider? You can click on cleveland.com/Browns, the blue banner at the top of the page. Or easier yet, text me at 216-208-3965. Again, that's 216-208-3965.
It takes attention to detail. With your local Bryant dealer, you're getting more than just a technician. You're getting someone who pays attention to your needs and the little things that make a big difference. it takes a dealer you can rely on. And to keep your family warm this winter,
here, let me show you how this works.
it takes Bryant.
Bryant, whatever it takes.
And to keep your family comfortable, it takes Smiley One Heating and Cooling. Find them at smiley1.com.
Welcome back to More Sports and Less Levine, the Weekend Winners Edition. We continue to talk Browns and Bengals. We're going to head down I-71 and head south to Cincinnati. Let's welcome in Bengals team reporter from Bengals.com, Marisa Contipelli. Marisa, as always, appreciate the time. Let's talk a little bit about Joe Burrow. He has looked every bit of what you would want in a franchise quarterback. What have you seen from him first 6 weeks and just the development of Joe Burrow?
Yeah, Dave, he really has. He's kind of been as advertised of what you were expecting him to be like coming in here as a rookie starting week one. There's obviously been some growing pains, and I think that's been really key in his development so far, is just learning from those mistakes. Obviously, last week, kind of forcing that interception there late in the fourth quarter, kind of sealing the deal against the Colts. Not what you want, but, talking to him earlier in the week, it's something that he's learning and growing from. But you look at the numbers he's put up, with the exception of the game against Baltimore. He had 3 straight 300-plus yard passing games. He's kind of getting more comfortable in this offense and really getting into more of a rhythm. And Dave, the biggest thing that has stood out through all of this so far is just his demeanor and the leadership he has showing. He has absolutely commanded respect out of that locker room, and it's evident and clear no matter who you talk to on this Bengals team. So Joe Burrow kind of doing exactly what he's been asked of so far here in Cincinnati. And I mean, the future is just so bright for this young man.
Yeah, Marisa, you could tell even in the first game against the Browns, which was a short week, a Thursday game, second week of the season, he was going through his progressions and finding people on the backside of plays. And to see somebody doing that in their second game, it was like, I think they might be onto something here.
You're exactly right. And even Zach Taylor has said that Joe doesn't seem like a rookie out there. He feels like he has a veteran quarterback kind of working with this offense at times, because he has so much maturity and really is doing the little things that sometimes you don't expect a rookie to do. Like you mentioned, going through those progressions. He's just so smart. His football IQ is so high that yes, there's going to be like little things throughout the course of the season, like trying to force plays like he has done a handful of times. But then you also see other times where he's really shining and showing that, he's kind of beyond his years when it comes to not really having that kind of typical rookie quarterback in there for Cincinnati.
Another guy that really appears to be coming on and starting to do some really good things is T. Higgins, a wide receiver, as if the Bengals need some more help there. But T. Higgins looks like he's really started to put things together as well.
He is, and it's been fun to watch. He has that size. He's that big receiver that the Bengals were wanting, and that's why they went ahead and drafted him. And especially over the last couple of weeks, really getting into a groove with Joe Burrow. He doesn't have necessarily the speed that you are always going to get from an outside receiver, but boy, can he go up and make the plays when you need to. And he's coming off of his first 100-yard receiving game, probably the first of many for this young man. Had his first touchdown receptions earlier this season against Philadelphia. And he's everything you want from that kind of big outside receiving threat in terms of his physicality and the fact that he's going to go up and make those contested catches. And it's really been fun to see the T and Joe Burrow relationship really starting to grow here in Cincinnati too.
How good was it to see Joe Burrow and A.J. Green put together a 8, 9, 10 reception game over 100 yards? Kind of the things that you expect from A.J. Green. And given the fact he missed so much time before getting back on the field this season, you knew it would take some time. Is there a sense that those two are starting to click now?
Oh, absolutely. And it was honestly, Dave, kind of 3 years in the making, wanting to see a game like this from A.J. Green. It had been since week 3 of 2017 since AJ had that many catches in a game. So the fact that he had all those injuries and the different type of adversity he had to overcome, not to mention not having a real off season this year where he was able to get in and work with Joe Burrow like he typically would on a normal given year. So it took a little bit of time for the two of them to kind of really start getting that chemistry and getting comfortable with one another. And even in talking with AJ after the game and earlier this week, he was telling us that, his body finally feels right. He finally feels at the point where he doesn't have any hesitation like he had previously coming back with different injuries, because he was dealing with a hamstring injury through the first part of training camp as well. So to see AJ finally go out there and look like his typical AJ self, I mean, we saw it on a key fourth down play against the Colts on Sunday where, Burrow threw it. The only person who could get it was AJ, and he had the toe drag there to stay in bounds and convert to get a first down. It was kind of like vintage AJ. So definitely an encouraging sign to see him not only have that type of game, but also that Joe Burrow is going to AJ in key and critical fourth down, third down situations, just showing a little bit of trust and comfortability that the two of them are growing.
Well, and another guy that's key to the Bengals offense, Joe Mixon. What's going on with him? He had to leave that Colts game, and obviously Gio Bernard is a capable backup, but what have you heard about Joe Mixon?
Yeah, so Joe Mixon left Sunday's game with a foot injury, did come back for a period of time, but then left the game once again. And his status right now is up in the air. We don't know how severe the injury is to his foot. We're hoping to get another update from Zach Taylor after practice today, but Joe did not practice yesterday. And obviously, if he can't go for Sunday, that is a huge blow to this Bengals offense. Giovanni Bernard is a very capable back, but he's more of a receiving back, where he really Mixon is the guy that's going to push through, get the grind on the ground. So without Mixon in there, it would just be a huge loss to this Bengals offense, and especially one where the offensive line had been playing better as of late. You had left tackle Jonah Williams coming off of his best game of the season, and the offensive line really putting together a couple of nice drives for the offense in that first quarter against the Colts. But without Mixon in there, he's the back that you want. Obviously, Giovanni Bernard, is a fine backup and a great receiving running back for this Bengals offense, but they would absolutely be missing something on the ground if Mixon doesn't go.
In listening to Zach Taylor talk, the Bengals, one win and a tie, 1-4-1. He said, boy, if you change 4 or 5 big plays during the course of the year, we have a very different record, a very different feel. And he was very honest, said, we haven't made those plays, so we don't have the right to say we're there. But do you get that sense that, there were huge momentum swinging plays that could have the Bengals, with 4 wins without too big of a stretch?
Yeah, exactly. And especially start off week 1 where Burrow connected with AJ Green with what should have been the game-winning touchdown, and it ended up getting called as offensive pass interference. So that's the biggest one to start off the season. That could have totally changed the course of the year if you start out 1-0 as opposed to 0-1. And then you also look at that game against Philadelphia. That's another one that stands out, where they had so many opportunities and chances, not only in the fourth quarter, but also in overtime in that game, and just couldn't get it done and had to settle for a tie. But, Zach Taylor, he's said it multiple times, there's no reason to hit the panic button yet. And he's exactly right, because this team is so close, and you can see just what they're capable of. You look at that game against Jacksonville when Joe Mixon went off for 3 total touchdowns, and Joe Burrow just had a phenomenal passing performance. And you look at the game against the Colts where they jumped out to a 21-point lead there early and just they weren't able to hang on. But that first quarter against the Colts, the offense was clicking, the defense, was hitting on all cylinders. And so this team really is just missing those few moments, few big plays in games they're going to change the course of the outcome. And they're close, Dave. So just kind of once they get that figured out, it's going to be, it'll do a lot for the mood in the locker room. And I mean, these guys, they're confident, they're not getting down on themselves, but obviously the way last year went, finishing 2-14, and this year being 1-4-1, it does start to weigh on you.
What are some keys defensively? If the Bengals are going to get things done, the offense has shown that, they can score points pretty much against anybody they played against. What does that defense need to do in order to help the offense out a little bit?
Well, first and foremost, stopping the run. I mean, we saw what Cleveland was able to do the first time around against the Bengals earlier this year, and the fact that Cincinnati is now going to be without DJ Reader, who went on IR and is going to be missing the rest of the season. they're really going to have to find a way to stop this Browns rushing attack, because it is one of the best in the league, even without Nick Chubb. But stopping the run first and foremost is going to be the key, because another thing that, you want to bring up is that Baker Mayfield in his last 3 games against Cincinnati has thrown 6 interceptions. So the secondary on this defense is very capable of forcing and getting that turnover when they need to. And it is a secondary that has been playing much better as of late. Jesse Bates playing like one of the best safeties in the league. So if they're able to get a little bit of pressure and rush Baker Mayfield, I think forcing him into a mistake, it could really be a turning point in this game if it does so happen, and something that this Bengals defense is going to have to try to force.
Marisa Contipelli, Bengals team reporter for Bengals.com. As always, appreciate the time. Thanks so much. Good luck to the Bengals, except this Sunday against the Browns. So thanks very much, Marisa. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave.
Marisa Contipelli, the Bengals team reporter for Bengals.com, friend of the program. That'll do it for this edition of More Sports and Les Levine, the weekend winners edition. We'll see you again next Friday. Les Levine will be back in the chair Monday from 6 until 7. Stay safe, everyone, and have a great weekend.